Welcome to the Alpha Girl Confidence Podcast, where we are empowering youth female athletes to play and live confidently. My name is Shay Haddo, and each week I will bring you new episodes to teach you the strategies and tools that you need in order to live a confident, empowered life both on and off the playing field. Hey, what's up? And welcome back to the show, episode 135. So on today's episode, it's going to be very, very valuable for parents. So in today's episode, I'm going to go through the three biggest mistakes that parents make when it comes to helping your daughter with her confidence. So a few weeks ago, I did a live training in my Facebook group. So this podcast episode will be clips of that live training in my Facebook group. So enjoy the episode. And if you want to join the Facebook group where I go live every single week and talk about these sorts of things, you can click the link in the show notes below or go to Facebook and type Alpha Girl Confidence into the Facebook groups and you can join us here. All right, enjoy the episode. So we are going to be talking about the three most common mistakes that I see parents making when it comes to helping your daughter become more confident and also reaching her goals. And these three things, like as I was thinking about them, I'm like, wow, these three things are so incredibly impactful and will have such a big impact on not only your daughter, but you and helping her in her confidence journey. All right, so let's get into these three mistakes. So again, this is going to be really valuable today. So I would highly suggest if you're on with us live, or actually if you're watching the replay too later, grab out a notebook and a piece of paper and a pen and take some notes here. So the first mistake that I see parents making, and I apologize if I get a little bit ranty here and a little bit passionate here, but this one really grinds my gears. And my parents used to do this to me too. My coaches used to say this to me. But mistake number one is you telling your kids to be realistic when they're setting goals. Gotta take a deep breath. So stop telling your kids to be realistic when you set goals. And so that we have some transparency here, like if you tell your kids be realistic when they're setting goals or when they tell you your big goals, let me know in the comments, like give me a thumbs up or type me if you're guilty of this. And I know a lot of you are, and that's totally okay. And that's why we're talking about it. So here's the thing. When you tell your kids to be realistic, the thing is, and I think a lot of the time it's subconscious, is that we're telling them to be realistic because we are protecting them from failure. We're protecting them from the scary feelings and the yuckiness that they'll have to face if they fail and they don't reach their goals, right? It's just a protective mechanism whether we tell ourselves to be realistic or when we tell other people, when we tell our kids to be realistic after they say, hey, mom, I want to go to Stanford. It's like, Susie, be realistic. Okay, so you're just protecting them from failing. You're just protecting them from the feelings that she may feel if she doesn't reach her goals. And what happens when you do that is really you're robbing her of learning from those mistakes and having those experiences. Okay. And with this, it's like, not only are you're trying to overprotect them from this, but you're limiting them. You're limiting them in what they can really achieve. You're teaching them to play small and not to play big. You're teaching them to go after small things, to have small goals, to have a small life. I want them to have a big life, and I know you do too, but by telling them to be realistic, it teaches them to play small. It teaches them to not go after things that they're not totally sure that they can achieve quite yet, right? I want all the girls I work with, and the reason why I'm so passionate about this number one specifically is because I want your daughter to play big. I want her to live a big life and reach all of her crazy dreams, right? Because here's the thing. When she plays big, when she's unrealistic in setting her goals and going after her goals, two things are going to happen. Either she's going to reach it, and that's freaking awesome, or she's going to get pretty dang close to reaching it. And in that, she's going to learn something. So even if she doesn't get into Stanford, even if she doesn't go play for North Carolina, you know what? She's either going to reach it or, hey, at least maybe she'll get close, right? And she'll have that experience and she'll maybe go to a bigger school or a more of her dream school than she could have wished for when instead of just being realistic, right? Again, being realistic, we're playing so small. But when you play bigger, you'll either reach it or you'll get pretty close. Okay, so it's, you guys have all heard the saying like, reach for the moon and you'll land amongst the stars, right? It's the same thing here. So with this kind of an action, a plan of action, is I know this has been ingrained into us forever. Like I've been told my whole life, be realistic. Shay, that's not realistic. Be realistic. So this is probably ingrained in us by our parents, and we're starting to ingrain it into our kids. Okay, so I want to stop that pattern now. And so what we can do instead, okay, what we can do instead is I want you instead, when your kid comes to you and says, hey, mom, hey, dad, I really want to play for the national team. I really want to play for the national team. Okay, instead of, I know a lot of you are probably like, that's great. And some of you may say, be realistic. But I want you instead to say, that's amazing. Like you can do anything you put your mind to. How can I support you in this? Right? And help them to create a kind of like a list of actions that they can do to actually achieve that. Right? So you're telling them that you believe in them, but you're also supporting them in creating a list of here's what you got to do. And more importantly, here is who you need to be in order to reach those crazy, crazy, unrealistic dreams. All right. And number 2, here we go. Number 2. All right. I learned a lot about this from my own experience with my father. Mistake number 2 is talking about the game excessively before the games and also after the games, before games and after the games. So when you talk to your kids before the game, and I'm talking like you're trying to get into the strategy and here's what to do and blah, 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 blah. When you're trying to get into it too much, they get inside their head. They start overthinking. They start questioning. They just get into their head. And here's the thing is we all know that we need them to get outside of their head. We need them to get outside of their head and into their bodies, because when they're in their head, they're overthinking, they're not playing well, they're holding back. But when they're playing in their body, they're having fun. They're playing well because when they have fun, they play well, right? They're performing well when they're playing in their body, okay? And if they want to talk, because I know, like, I don't want to generalize, but I know also that there's plenty of kids here who do want to talk a little bit about the game beforehand. Like maybe they want some tips, maybe they want some strategies, maybe they just like to talk about the game. That's totally cool, but let them lead it. Like let them start the conversation, let them ask questions, let them be the ones to bring it up. Because when you bring it up as a parent, it's like, oh gosh, and then it just kind of spirals from there. I know as a player from experience that was probably one of the worst things that I could do before a game is just listen to my dad about all of the things that I need to do and that I should do and how I should play. That didn't help me. And I know it probably doesn't help a lot of you guys here. So that's before the games. So before the games, let them lead or just let them do their thing. Like for me, I teach all my girls to visualize before they play. So there shouldn't even be a conversation. Like turn down the music or turn on some music and have her put her headphones in and just have her visualize. And that way, like, she gets what she needs and you aren't tempted to talk to her because she's busy visualizing. All right. And then after the game, this was like, I always call it like the dreaded car ride home, because I hated driving home with my dad. And he knows this. We talked about it. But it was because every time I got in the car, I knew it was going to be like, all right, Dad, Tell me what I did wrong. Tell me what I didn't do good enough. Tell me, like, just come on, just lay it on me. Like, I knew that's all it was going to be. And even though he meant it in better ways, I didn't perceive it that way. And I know that a lot of the time, teenage girls, you say one thing to them and they can twist it around in the most crazy ways, and they can totally put it on themselves. So by you giving them feedback and criticism, sometimes they just perceive it as, you know what? I'm not good enough because I disappointed my mom or my dad, or my mom and my dad aren't happy. So therefore, that's why they're giving me feedback, is because they're not proud of me. They're disappointed in me and I'm not good enough. So when it comes to talking after the games, if they like to talk about it, again, let them lead. Let them ask the questions. Let them, be the ones to do most of the talking while you just listen. So if they want to talk about it, ask them questions like, how do you feel like you played? Did you have fun? Like, what did you learn? Right? What did you do well? So you can kind of be there to ask them questions to get them to be the ones to really analyze it instead of you being the one to analyze it. And the last one, mistake number 3. And this is probably, well, they're all kind of hard, but this one's kind of tough. Mistake number 3 is after your kid makes a mistake, your body language after the mistake. A lot of the time, it's like not so great body language from you after your kid makes a mistake. Maybe it's you, like you do this, you do one of these, or you shake your head, or you put your hand on your head like this, like, or like those little things that you do, those reactions that you do after you make a mistake, they matter. Because whether you realize it or not, most of the time, and I try to teach my girls not to do this, but most of the time after your daughter makes a mistake, what does she do? She looks over at the sideline to see what mom or dad thinks of their mistakes, right? So it's like, oh, I made a mistake. Did mom and dad see that? Ooh, did they see that? What are they thinking? Are they disappointed? Are they happy? What's their reaction, right? So a lot of times it's looking at parents, looking at coaches. But here's the thing. When they see that body language, when they see that you're like this, or you're like embarrassed, or you're disappointed, they automatically, subconsciously implant this belief in their minds that when they make a mistake, they disappoint you. When they make a mistake, you're not happy with them. When they make a mistake, you're embarrassed. Therefore, I'm not good enough, right? Like that's how it works. So it's like the most subtle thing. And I just had a conversation last week with one of my players. And she said, like, when I miss a shot, like, and I look over at my mom or my dad, I see them put their head down and I see them shake their head, and it's like, boom, the rest of my game is over. I'm in my head. Like I'm like totally not present. And so this happens a lot, guys. One time the whole sideline got kicked out because someone's grandma went crazy, and the whole sideline got kicked out. And it was like the most freeing, amazing thing ever, because we could just play and we didn't have parents on the sideline. So I know that's kind of sad, but it was like amazing to not have parents on the sideline. So like, I'm not telling you have to be perfect. I'm just encouraging you to be super, super aware of the little nuanced body language that you do after they make a mistake, right? Because it's just reactionary a lot of the time, and it's not like you're meaning any harm by it. Like they make a bad pass or they miss an easy shot or whatever, and naturally you just go to like, oh man, like what was she thinking, right? And so it's so automatic that it's going to take some time, but it starts with awareness, right? It starts with awareness. And next time you're watching a game or you're watching a practice and you notice yourself doing that, just be like, there she is. There it is. Like there's that body language that Shay was talking about. And then from there, right, we can fix it and we can change it. Right. Like I coach my girls on this all the time with your thoughts. Like you first have to be aware of it before you can change it. So be super aware with your body language, because it makes a massive, massive impact on how your daughter perceives, making mistakes. And just know that the last thing they want as a child, and whether you believe this or not, the last thing they want is to disappoint the people that birthed them and the people that they love and that love them so much. It's like the worst thing in the world. So start with awareness, and then from there you can start to make some changes. Wear a mask if you have to. Suck on a sucker if you have to. Just try to flip it with something good. Give them a thumbs up, whatever that looks like. So those are the 3 mistakes. All right, recap. Number 1 is stop telling your kid to be realistic. Stop teaching them to be small and to play small. I want them to think big, to be big, to have these crazy, unrealistic dreams. Number 2 is, I forgot my number 2. Oh yeah, number 2 is don't talk to them before or after games unless they are leading it. Then you can kind of prod a little bit, but let them lead it if they do want to talk about it. And number 3 is really be aware of your body language in games and practices, specifically when they make a mistake. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I hope that it was helpful for you, and hopefully you can go implement and put these things into practice. And if it was helpful, I would really appreciate a 5-star review on iTunes. The more reviews we get, the more I can help more girls and more parents. So thank you so much for checking out today's episode, and I'll see you next week.